a soilless environment. So as you might have seen earlier, all of these plants are floating on about 12 inches of water. Their roots are absorbing the nutrients created by the fish and then ultimately taking up those nutrients and removing any kind of nutrient from the water before that water heads right back to the fish tanks. So in the system, tilapia or the fish tanks, whatever freshwater fish you decide to use, is the starting point. And in our technique, we utilize gravity to flow this water until the very end where we have a pump. So the fish tanks are at the highest level. They're at the highest point, allowing that water to start there, come in the top of those tanks, and then flow down into our first first filtration tanks. We'll get into more detail about these components, but let me run through the system's flow rate. So from the fish tanks, we head to our biofiltration. This separates out almost 65 to 70% of all the solid waste that these tilapia create. Remember, they're stocked in there commercially, so we have a lot of tilapia in there and they produce a lot of waste. We don't need all that waste for this product. Lettuce doesn't take up a lot of nutrients. It's a very simple and delicate product, so we can simplify our cleaning methods by removing those, like wastewater treatment. So we take the majority of that waste product, trap it at the bottom of those tanks, and then send that directly outside to the raised compost beds that we have covered during most of the summer, and then we're allowed to grow with really nutrient-rich soil through the seasonal times, like the garden outside.
So do you use it as a fertilizer?
So we use it as a fertilizer and it builds up over time. It's more of a compost material, so we're building up compost.
Not only for the lettuce, but also for what you have outside.
Right, so only 30% gets through there for the lettuce. That other percentage actually goes outside and just culminates as a great nutrient source that you can actually bag up and sell as soil for traditional gardeners. But from that 30% that does get through, that water heads directly back to where that green plant is on that wooden tray. Those beds are filled with a rock media, which we're going to get a chance to look at. And
those
it's
are
a flood and drain media bed. So those flood and drain, allowing oxygen to fill those beds when the water releases, but also for microbial action to build up on the rock material surface and actually convert that 30% of that solid waste that we've created into a nitrate material. So ammonia in its raw form gets converted to a nitrate through a nitrification cycle. The plants can't take up ammonia, but they can fully take up nutrients in the form of a nitrate. And so when they can take that up, they can ultimately remove that nitrate, but in its raw form, that nitrate is that raw ammonia. So if you added ammonia back into those fish tanks, they would die off. But by converting it and then allowing these plants to take up that nutrient, when that water flows back to the fish tank, it doesn't have any ammonia, has very minimal amount of nitrates.
So that water, do you filter that when it goes back to the tank?
No need to filter it.
It directly goes in it?
We do have filters on the pumps itself, but that's more filtration for roots that might get through, or pieces of leaves that fall down, but nothing to filter it as far as any kind of solid waste. Exactly. And so that water will flood and drain in those beds and then drop down and then flow through all these plants before heading back up to the fish tank. So that's the complete system, and remember, we're using gravity.
This is totally aquaponics, this part is.
All aquaponics.
You also have a hydroponics, you were talking about something.
So hydroponics is going to be a general term for growing plants without soil.
Right.
So that's what this is. So, but hydroponics is also another growing technique that doesn't utilize aquaculture, but uses chemicals, nutrients, and fertilizers to really maintain that. We do have a hydroponic system over there, which we'll get to at the very end of the tour. And after you're really knowledgeable about what we're doing in here, you can really weigh the differences between the two and know this is actually a ton more sustainable than what is over there.
Yeah.
So this system not only uses 1/10 of the land it would take to grow this much lettuce outdoors, but it also takes only 1/10 the water. The water that we lose is only due to evaporation in minimal amounts when we drain our filter tanks once a week, and then what the plants can take up in the form of the nutrient. So really minimal amount of water you have to supply back into the system to keep this thing running. So before we get back to the hydroponic system at the end, let's talk about each one of these components a little bit more in detail. So as we walk around, our first component in our arguably most important component in aquaponics is our fish tanks. So these aquaculture tanks, we have 4 of them, and they all range in age from our nursery tanks to our adolescents, our middle age, and then our old harvest tanks. So these guys are the biggest.
So you move it.
So as you can see, these are empty. We've just moved these over to these tanks, and this one moved over there, and we harvested that full tank down.
How often are you going to do that?
So with 4 tanks, we try and get it every 4 months. So every 4 months, we'll move these 2 to here, move there to there. And so that process moves
Do
through.
you physically do it with the...
We physically do it with a cast net.
Okay.
So we'll drain the water down, and then we'll cast net them up. And it's a pretty simple process after that. Very, it's somewhat stressful for the fish. So a lot of people use raceways in aquaculture to maneuver or navigate those fish, but really, there's not a lot of stress involved if you can do it very
So
quickly.
how many fish yearly do you actually market it and just for money?
We try and do, this is going to produce around 6,000 tilapia a year, and the other one will produce around 6,000 tilapia, and we sell them at about 2 pounds each. So we're looking at close to 24,000 pounds of tilapia per year out of this one system. And we could really do that, double what it's doing, if we were selling the fish more readily, but it's actually quite hard to market and sell the fish. So right now we're really utilizing the fish more as a nutrient conversion or nutrient creator as opposed to another form of revenue. But if you were to supply the fish to the same market that you sell the lettuce to consistently, the price that you can get from the fish and the revenue experience from them will cover all operational expenses for the lettuce. So you're growing the lettuce for pure profit if you can get the fish side down. We just haven't had much luck with that.
Another question about the fish part of it. Let's say somebody doesn't want to kill the fish. As a Hindu religious, people don't believe in the killing. So how about ornamental fish would work on these tanks or no?
Yeah. Ornamental fish like koi or goldfish will work on some smaller level systems. With this commercial amount, you really have to get a producing fish that can get a lot of waste product into your system. You don't have to kill them off because these guys can last up to 4 years in your system.
Oh, really?
You just
4
have
years?
to be ready to kind of...
Then I'm okay.
By that time, they're ready to die.
Because farmer is killing when they cultivate the land. They kill millions of bugs over the stuff over there, right? So
sure.
it's a lot less than whatever they're killing over there.
And these fish are probably
just look at it the right way, right?
These fish are probably in the most clean environment that they could be because of the filtration effect of these two. So they're really working hand in hand to grow. And
Another thing is kind of, these fishes, can you mix and mash the different kind of fishes, or you need to have one kind?
Really depends on the species. Some species interact negatively, some species interact positively. So it really depends on the history of the fish and the species in general.
And how the ornamental fish works, they have to sell it to somebody else, like after it gets bigger, and give it to on a pond or put it in a pond or somewhere else, or that's what they do, or what?
That's what they usually do.
Right.
Most people grow tilapia in aquaponics.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
We grew tilapia for a couple reasons. The first and most important one is because there's so much information about tilapia. We weren't fish experts when we started, so having someone else do a lot of the legwork for us helped us understand this side of the system before we really got involved with the other side. But I have seen other systems that use salmon, Atlantic salmon, and I've seen koi.
So salmon is a very good money maker.
Money maker, exactly.
And I don't know about the how the production of the waste is. We don't know that, but salmon is, I think, number one as far as money concerns.
Exactly, but they're also one of the more difficult fish to maintain a temperature level that would be acceptable for them. Tilapia are pretty much, you can send them anywhere and they'll be fine. Here, if we had Atlantic salmon, it would be probably too warm for a long time out of the year. We would have to put chillers into the system, and that would just increase our costs, in inconsistencies.
So, in other words, you can use any kind of fish as long as you understand them.
Any freshwater fish.
Freshwater.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And what is the feeding? What kind of feeding you doing to the fish?
We use a commercial